Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 387 of the Black and Gold Hockey Podcast here on Facebook and Twitch and YouTube and on X or Twitter or whatever we're calling it these days. Today I am joined by Kenny Kaminsky. Kenny, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to talk some Bruins hockey.
And I am also joined today by David Collins, who just joined us. David, how you doing? His internet is still laggy. Uh-oh. I'm going to let him figure it out. Anyway, we'll come back to David in just a bit. Anyway, David is reportedly here. We'll figure it out here shortly. But today, let's get into some games of the past week. It has not been a great week if you're cheering for the Bruins to win. But if you're cheering for the Bruins to tank, well, it might be your dream week because they started things off against the Sharks last Saturday, and they lose this one 3-1. Kenny, okay, the game's tied at 1. The Sharks score, they review it, or they thought about reviewing it. Was it offside?
Well, at the time, I was like, absolutely, this is 100% offsides. I don't know how you don't challenge it. But a few days later, getting the rule clarification, knowing that it's not possession, the player has to be touching the puck. Also knowing that Joe Sacco took time to look at it and called the timeout and took more time to look at it and have angles that we don't. I'm okay with it now. At the time, I was furious. Also, it makes a little bit more sense because even if it was close, I would understand Joe Sacco not challenging it because if you challenge and it doesn't work, it's a 2-minute penalty. There's only 3 minutes left in the game. So, I think there was a higher % chance of us scoring on a 6-on-5 than there was that being called an offsides. So I'm okay with it, but I'm not okay with losing to the Sharks, the worst team on the planet right now. Not on the planet, in the NHL, but it's whatever. I'm praying for the tank, so I'm kind of just getting excited. So
praying for the tank. Speaking of tanking, they lose this one, the next game on the next night, 7-2 to, my phone almost just dropped, to the LA Kings on Sunday. This was not a fun one either. The Bruins got off to a great start. First 45, 50 seconds in, Elias Lindholm scores. Great. It's 1-0, and then they, make it 1-1. And then they never look back. The Kings dominated, Kenny.
Yeah, like you said, these are the games that, even though I'm hoping for the tank and I'm hoping that they keep losing games, this is just ugly. This is not fun hockey. They're not playing with pride. It looks like everybody's kind of given up. It's just, I want to see a little bit of effort, especially with guys who have contracts on the line next year, and I'm just not seeing it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. David just joined us. We finally figured it out. David?
I'm using my tablet, so I apologize. Let me know if there's any interference or feedback or anything. My computer is not doing what I want it to do, so I apologize for that.
Give your quick thoughts on the Sharks and Kings games from last weekend.
Is there really anything to say? It's to the point where, the Sharks team especially, I really thought they were going to win. It was one of those, I had said in the last pod that out of the remaining 12 games, I seen them losing about 9. The Sharks game was one that I expected them to win. So now we're looking at, maybe a 2-10 down the rest of the season, but we'll see how it goes. But there's not a lot of positives to take out of it. I saw a report talking about Husnudinov and how, the Brazo deal was good, but Husnudinov is not showing enough offensive touch and stuff like this. But I feel like with given the roster, it's hard to evaluate these new players in the system right now. So definitely going to be patient with those guys. But yeah, in terms of those previous games, Sam, I really don't have much to say.
Yeah. They had a couple of days off. They go to Anaheim to take on the Ducks. And, man, another pitiful performance here. Through 2, they got outshot 28-9 in that game. You know, I'm going to say this. The 3rd and 4th goals really broke the team, right? Bruins get it back, make it a 1-goal game on a Pasternak 5-on-3 goal. And then the Ducks score after it bounces off of Pavel Zacha's helmet. It was like a soccer goal. It bounced off his helmet, fell, hit the crossbar, hit the back of Korpisalo and in the net. And then the 4th goal, if that doesn't sound chaotic, the 4th goal is kind of a weird one. Shot from the corner, and it bounced in past Korpisalo right underneath the pad. Kenny, oh man.
Just another game that I'm like, wow, I cannot believe I stayed up to watch this whole game in its entirety. I mean, the first period says it all. Fabian, Lysell, 2 shots, Patrick Brown, 1 shot, and that's all the shots that the forward core had. Just unbelievable stuff. Like I said, I feel like the guys who have stuff on the line aren't even playing at this point. Just another unfortunate outcome.
David, what are your thoughts on this game against the Ducks?
Yeah, I mean, Sam, like you said, there was a lot of weird goals in this one. It is unfortunate to see such lopsided games in terms of score and stuff, but obviously it's to the point now where a part of me almost, hopes they lose the rest of the season while also staying competitive in the game just to kind of make it watchable. Again, there's really not a lot of positives that you can take out of something like this. Obviously, it's nice to see Pasta continue to do what he's doing, but outside of that, there's really not much to say.
Yeah, Morgan Geekie continuing his hot stretch, including again last night as they lose to the Red Wings 2-1. In what was, after the Geekie goal, the most boring game of the season by far. I mean, oh my goodness. They scored to make it 2-1, and then, they just stopped playing. Both teams kind of stopped playing hockey for a little bit of that game, and the Red Wings hung on, including a great save by Cam Talbot on Middlestat late in that one last night. Kenny, overall reactions to last night's loss against Detroit and kind of how Swayman played versus the rest of the team?
It's just, we talked about it earlier. It's tough because Swayman played well and the team can't even really muster more than 20 shots. I mean, it was a boring game, but luckily I had the P Bruins on and they put up a pretty good performance last night. So that kind of masked a little bit of this game. But another loss, and we moved down, and we're looking for that first pick. So,
David,
it's nice to see Geekie continue to do what he's doing. I still think that he owes David Pasternak quite a few suppers along the way. Once he does sign that new deal for keeping him so offensively in the game, it's obviously very good to see Jeremy Swayman have, I guess. He still let in 2 goals, so I wouldn't say a good game, but better than what he's been lately. It's just obviously it's one of those things where, and it seems to be kind of consistent throughout the season. It's the offense can't get going and the goalie plays good, or the offense is going good but the goalie can't play good. So there's a disconnect between the offense and the defense, the goalie, special teams, stuff like that, and it's been pretty apparent all season. But like Kenny said, horrible for Higgins.
Horrible for Higgins, indeed. So as of right now, here are the draft lottery chances of getting the first overall pick. Let's take a look here. So the Sharks have a 25.5% chance of getting the first overall pick. The Bruins, 6% with 8 games to go. Definitely something to keep our eyes on. So the Bruins keep on losing, they could definitely get a chance to better their chances of getting the first overall pick in the draft, especially with playing Buffalo coming up soon. They're also playing this week. They're playing the Capitals, the Canadiens, and the Hurricanes this week. Oh boy. So those are just our quick thoughts on the games of the past week. Let's actually break down some stuff. Okay, so Swayman, gives up 7 to the Kings on Sunday. Nikita Zadorov was asked on his thoughts on the whole Swayman versus Kemper thing. They almost fought. Okay, there was almost a goalie fight. We were all crapping on the league for not letting them fight and the officials and whatever. So apparently, Nikita Zadorov was asked about Swayman, and he says, "Is that what that was? I don't know." So Zadorov sounded a little frustrated, and a lot of Bruins fans read into this a little too much, saying that, there might be a disconnect in that locker room. David, do you think there's a disconnect in that locker room, or is that just out of frustration from a rough night all around?
Yeah, anyone, like, obviously I've never played professional sports, but anyone who's played any sort of organized sports, there's a lot of tensions, especially after losing games that you're expected to win, or, in terms of the season, doing a lot worse than what was expected when you came into the season, especially for a guy like Zadorov. Obviously, he left a situation where he was uncomfortable. He was hoping to come somewhere and kind of win immediately, and that's not how this season's gone. So words can be taken into context a lot, especially for a guy who, English is his second language. So, yeah, the no comment thing really didn't play in my mind at all. I wouldn't have even thought anything of it until, the media started talking about how it was considered to be, a shot at Swayman or, some rift in the locker room or whatever. Razor had said on one of the episodes of Jaffe and Razor, the Morning Brew, that it's just like a mixture based, I'm paraphrasing here, but a mixture of, disappointment, stress, being upset with where they are, but then also not backing down from a question, because the reporter, depending on the way that you read it, it could have been interpreted as, oh, well, Swayman had to step up because you weren't willing to. And like Zadorov is always one of those guys, he's known to be, picking up for his teammates. So there may have been a little bit of, he may have went on the offensive a little bit there. So he may not have liked the way that the question was worded either. But obviously he clarified it after, stating that basically emotions run high sometimes and things like that. So no, I don't think there's any sort of rift in the locker room. Obviously there's a lot of new faces in there, and there's a lot of disappointment, a lot of stress. So things are going to be said that probably shouldn't be said, and it's going to be taken in a context that it shouldn't be taken in. But I definitely don't think there's any sort of rift between players right now.
Kenny?
It wouldn't surprise me if there was. The leadership group was gutted. This team keeps losing. It wouldn't surprise me if there was stuff going on in the locker room. But in this particular instance, I feel like when you look at comments and stuff like that, it's interpreted a million different ways. Everybody has their own opinion on it. I just don't think it was that big of a deal. I'm with David. Like, when I was watching it on YouTube, I was like, whatever, move on. Not really a big deal. But people want to blow it out of proportion. And, I guess they have good reason to. You need something to write about when the team's losing 6-7 in a row. So, whatever. Not really a big deal to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I feel like people. I read into it a little bit myself. I was kind of like, why is he saying that? But then I kind of looked into it and I listened back to it after a couple of times, and I went, okay, he probably just didn't really like the question, and he probably didn't like the fact that he was being asked it after getting his ass kicked. Their team got their asses kicked 7-2. I don't really blame him. Tensions do run high, as he said, and emotions run high, and sometimes emotions and tensions get the better of you. So I'm not really super. I'm not looking into it too much. But by the way, for those who are wondering, I completely forgot to mention this. Mark's not here this week. I completely forgot to mention that. Mark, last second, had an illness, so unfortunately he's not with us this week. He'll be back with us next week, hopefully. Wishing him nothing but the best. Hopefully he gets better soon. For those who are wondering, as he just typed that in the chat now. So completely forgot to mention that. Hopefully Mark's feeling better, and hopefully he is on the mend coming up soon. So, all right, let's move on to Charlie McAvoy. He came out to Anaheim and started practicing with the team for the first time since his injury during the Four Nations. Why, David? Why?
Yeah, I understand skating in the red jersey just to get your legs fresh. I don't think his injury was his shoulder. There was no lower body injuries that he was dealing with at the time, as far as we know. Correct?
I don't think so.
Yeah, so getting out there and getting skating, getting his legs moving on the ice. I'm sure he's been working on, treadmills and bikes and stuff, but getting him out there to get the legs fresh, I'm completely fine with that. The red jersey is obviously a good sign as well, just to make sure that, nobody mistakes him for someone else. Ryan Bosworth of Black and Gold Productions actually wrote an article where he basically said the Bruins need to give McAvoy time to fully heal to be in order to be ready to lead the team next season. And I fully agree with that. I don't think there's anything good that could come of playing McAvoy for the rest of the season. Sacco did say as well that McAvoy would play when he's ready and available. But again, we could be looking at the start of next season before he is ready and available. And again, that could just be like his way of kind of deflecting the question without saying he won't be here the rest of the season, just in case there is something that I don't exactly know how it works in terms of like explaining injuries and reasons why people are out. So that could be his way of just deflecting that question away to be like, he'll be there when he's ready. But I wouldn't look too deep into that. I'd also go as far as to say that the same about Lindholm, Hampus Lindholm, that is. Keep him out the rest of the season. Let him be fresh for the next season. And I almost, down the stretch here, we got like 10 games left. 8 games left, I believe.
8.
So with the 8 games being left, I'd almost go as far, and again, I don't know how this works in terms of like how much you can sit a person without them having like an injury designation or whatever, but guys like Pastrnak, Swayman, even Zadorov, the guys who, I guess the big guns, it might not be a bad idea to give them some rest down the stretch here, because there's nothing good that can come out of the rest of the season. Nobody's chasing any sort of records. Nobody is in the hunt for any MVP or anything like that. So, why not sit them? Don't risk the injuries going into next season. Let them go into the off season, get fresh, get prepared, and kind of regroup at that point. But if it was me, and again, I'm not too familiar with what the rules are in terms of sitting players that are not injured or having those like phantom injuries, we'll call them, I would consider sitting guys like Pastrnak and Swayman, and making sure that McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm specifically sit out the rest of the season.
Definitely an interesting take. I would not be shocked if they do this for the final like 1 or 2 games of the season where they call up a lot of guys from Providence as like a thank you game and they get like an NHL game under their belt. So guys like Merkulov, Tufte, Wallstrom, Brunet, even possibly. A lot of those guys, even Minton probably, and Patra, definitely those guys might get an NHL game or 2 at the end of the season. But I don't see Pastrnak or Swayman or Zadorov sitting because then the Bruins people will be coming at the Bruins for intentionally trying to lose.
But is that like, I understand what you're saying, but we can look at the way the Bruins season is going right now, and we know that it's been a failure, right? So if you're going to tank, why not just fully tank? And again, I understand the integrity of the game, but like, are there any rules against that?
That's what they instituted the draft lottery for, so they can get away from tanking, right? Because look at what's happening in the NFL, right? The NFL still does not have a draft lottery. There's a reason why we've been seeing the same few teams over the last few years in the draft lottery and then near the top of that and getting the first overall pick or whatnot, or top pick, because they're intentionally tanked to do so. That's why the NBA and the NHL instituted a draft lottery. This is why in the MLB you can't even trade draft picks in baseball. You can't. You just get them. And there's like 30 or 40 rounds. So you have to get 30 or 40 prospects whether you want them or not. So
yeah, you can trade your comp picks or something, but that's it. You can't trade the picks that are given to you throughout the rounds. Kenny, just to touch on Sam's point there, and I'm curious, you're more up on the Providence side than we are. So Providence has now, and I know we're going to get into Providence next, but just because you touched on Brunet and Merkulov and people like that, Sam, I'm just curious. Kenny, when do the playoffs start for Providence? And I guess the other side of that is, I guess, Sam, to disagree with you, because they're in a playoff race and possibly could change their seeding, would it make sense for them to be called up for a thank you game at the end of the season?
Yeah, so I think it's April 16th is when the season ends. They finish their season at home against Bridgeport. I think it would make sense to have thank you games, but to be thank you games. I don't think that it would be smart to call up Patra or Minton. Maybe call up Merkulov. Maybe call up a guy like Farinacci. Give a guy like Pitt like a thank you game. Give a guy, not Brunet, but like Billy Sweezy, somebody who's been a good soldier and been down there and just working hard. So that's who I think should be coming up for thank you games. Minton and Patra, what are we thanking them for? They're going to be here next year. They're going to be most likely in the opening lineup anyways. I think Brunet is somebody that I would like to see because he's just put so much effort and so much work into his game. The improvement that he's made from last year to this year is incredible. I don't think that he's ready just yet, so I don't know how they're feeling. And I mean, people could be upset that you're tanking the last 2 games, but thank you games are pretty common in the NHL. So I don't know how people would interpret it. Like, you know, the Capitals are going to do it. I know they're in the playoffs. Like, I know playoff teams are going to do it. So I don't really see the issue if you do it for the last 2 games. Obviously, if we start now and we start handing out thank you games, it would look a little bit weird. But you know, last 1-2 games of the season, I don't really see an issue.
Makes sense.
What was your point about you're disagreeing with me, David? I didn't really pick up what you were saying.
Oh, sorry. Just like to say, like when you were like, oh, they should give thank you games to like Merkulov and Brunet and stuff, and I was kind of saying, would it be smart if they keep those players in Providence, can Providence change their seeding to have a higher seed in the playoffs?
Well, yeah, but Mark has said many times that if you have a top two seed, it's actually what killed Providence's momentum the last couple of years because they've lost to Hartford. They're currently 4th in the Atlantic, right? We'll just transfer over to the Providence Bruins subject, because we're just moving right along here. You're talking Providence, right? Providence is 4th in the Atlantic, which is what the Providence needs, because if they're in the top 2, they're not gonna have a first round. They're gonna have a bye pretty much, like this is like the NFL, which is what's killed them the last 2 years because they've played Hartford the last 2 years after having a first round bye, and they lost in those series because of the fact that they had rest. So, you know, it might not be a bad idea to send them up just to say, hey, here you go. Here's a game for you. Simply because they don't want to compete and get a second or first spot, because they want to make sure they have a playoff. They have to have a first round playoff series. Kenny, am I right on that?
Yeah, and ideally, I want Providence to be that 4th seed, because it goes, the first 2 get buys, and then the 3rd plays the 6th, and then the 4th plays the 5th. Right now, I think Providence matches up much better with Lehigh Valley than they do Springfield. So I'd rather have Charlotte or Wilkes-Barre Scranton play against Springfield. And right now, Providence has a pretty good cushion. It's basically Hershey and then the next 3 teams, which is Providence is in, and then the next 2. So they have a pretty big cushion on Lehigh Valley. Right now, my main concern, now that we're talking about the Providence Bruins, is Michael DiPietro went down, and they called up Nolan Mayer. So I want him to be healthy for the playoffs, obviously. So, and also, I don't know if time off would be like the worst thing, especially with guys trying to get kind of reintegrated into the lineup. Guys like everybody who's in the NHL right now. I'm sure they're going to finish out their season in the NHL, and then maybe having that week to come down and, you know, practice and give Ryan Mougenel some time to figure out the lineup isn't the worst thing. But I don't think they're going to be actively trying to not win. But I don't know if getting that top seed is priority to the point where you play guys who aren't 100%. So that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know, because like last night they beat Hartford. By the way, for those who are wondering, they beat Hartford 2-1 last night. Tyler Pitlick and Jackson Nelson scoring. Yeah, I saw Jackson Nelson's name pop up, and I went, "Wait, he hadn't scored in forever. That was his 2nd goal of the season."
Yeah, back-to-back games he scored.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
he hadn't, because right, he played with Providence last year, right?
I think he played like at the end of the. I think he played at the end of the season, because last year he was with Minnesota. So
right,
I think he signed at the end of the season.
Right. So definitely good to see Jackson Nelson scoring. Pitlick, an unreal goal last night. I posted that on my X. I posted your video, Kenny. It was an insane goal last night for sure.
Yeah, it was something that I think the team needed, being down 1-0 in the third period. They've had problems trying to solve Dylan Garand all season. So finding Tyler Pitlick to just will it into the net, he basically just carried the team on his back on that goal, which was nice. Yeah, I'm excited for the playoffs, and it was a great game last night in front of the home crowd and everything.
Yeah, Bussy looked good.
Yeah.
So,
I wonder if he's going to start today because Providence had a 4-game week this week. They played Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Saturday and Sunday, and Bussy has started for 3 of them. Now that they're in the playoffs, I wonder who's going to be the starter tonight. Bussy's typically the 1 game a week guy, so will be interesting to see that.
I wonder if Nolan Meyer might get the call today because I don't think DiPietro is still 100%. So I wonder if Nolan Meyer might get the start in Providence today.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a bad thing, obviously. Give Brandon Bussy some rest because in the second period, late in the second period yesterday, he came up a little bit shaken up, but he ended up finishing the game and played pretty well. The worst thing that you could have happen right now is both goalies go down. Providence has one of the best tandems in the AHL, in my opinion, obviously, and I'm biased for sure, but having both of the goalies go down right as the team's trying to, pick up momentum for the playoffs would be horrible. Off topic just slightly, Jeff Merrick reported that Bruins and DiPietro's camp have been in talks for a contract, which is awesome. And I'm really happy that they're getting ahead of this because this would be a huge signing. It would also give them flexibility where they could sign maybe a younger goalie, gives them some flexibility, maybe go out and get Albin Boya. Obviously, Brandon Bussy, a fan favorite, but, I don't know if he is that starter potential in the AHL. He's done really well in the backup role so far this season. He struggled early, but signing the best goalie in the AHL, no problems there. So,
and that brings me to my point, David. Do you think that if the Bruins were to try to re-sign DiPietro, that would this open up an opportunity to try to move Korpisalo over the offseason to try to get DiPietro into the NHL backup role behind Swayman?
Assuming that DiPietro's injury is not something they consider to be long-term, I could see this being more of like a managing the injury before playoffs type of thing. Now that they know they're in the playoffs, bring up, is it Meyer or Mayer?
Mayer.
Oh, it's Mayer.
So bring up Mayer and then let him get some touches in Providence. They know they got a playoff spot locked up. Like you said, they have a bit of a cushion between themselves and the next team's down. So give DiPietro time to be fully healthy before the playoffs start and then kind of see what he has. But I think I really hope Providence goes on a deep playoff run here for a couple different reasons. Given the flux that the NHL Bruins roster's in, I think a deep playoff run could give management a real good look at some of these young players to see if they're ready for that next step. Give them a chance to see the players in stressful situations and see how they play when things really matter. And I think DiPietro is one of those. Sam, I think that's a fantastic point to consider how Korpisalo's played during the year. I think anyone could probably see him as a backup right now and a spot starter if anyone goes down for injuries or stuff. So it is possible that he has a higher trade value now than he did coming into the Bruins. So that's definitely a good thing. If the front office sees DiPietro as a backup to come up into the NHL next year, then it would only make sense to shop Korpisalo around and see what you have. And even if it got to a point where they held on to him and kind of waited for an injury to happen or a bad starter in another team and a team wants to look at Korpisalo closer, they already got DiPietro locked up. They know that they can bring him up at any time. So it'll make trading Korpisalo easier no matter what. In terms of the rest of the Providence Bruins, Fraser Minton has looked fantastic since he came over. He seems to have really stepped in and did exactly what the Bruins want him to do. Based on HockeyDB.com, he's played 8 games. He's got 7 points, and he's a 0 plus-minus. So nothing negative to take from that. Lethierry leads the team in goals, and Merkulov leads the team in points. DiPietro has definitely looked like the superior goalie down in the AHL. He's played more games. He has a better record. He has a better save percentage. Everything seems to be pretty straightforward there. The only issue, and Mark has brought this up a couple times, The Bruins seem to like the taller goalies, the 6 foot plus goalies. Now, obviously, Tim Thomas is a bit of an outlier there. I believe he was just under 6 foot, and I believe DiPietro is just under 6 foot as well. So, depending on how much they look into physique and size, that might be the one thing that DiPietro has against them in terms of getting a spot with the NHL Bruins. But everything else so far has looked really good for Providence. I really like the way the season's gone, and I do look forward to, obviously, I don't have Flow Hockey, so I can't watch the games, but I do look forward to keeping tabs on how it goes. So, Kenny, make sure you're tweeting out lots.
Yeah, will do. I actually, DiPietro's 6'1", which is really, really short for a goalie. But I think that he does well. If you go to a game and you're seeing it in person, you would have no idea that he's 6'1" just because of how he presents himself. He moves really well. I don't know how that's going to translate to the NHL, but we have goalie god Bob Asenza, so anything is possible at this point. And I think Brandon Bussey has the size. A lot of the same goals keep going in, a lot of up high, a lot of, movement stuff. Bussey's a fantastic goalie, and I hope that they keep him around, but I don't think he's going to be the backup. I don't know if DiPietro is going to be the backup either. Who knows? But like I said, I like the flexibility of getting ahead of it and signing DiPietro for next season, just so if it doesn't work out, you're not kind of stuck in no man's land where you're just trying to find any goalie, because the goalie market is scarce this year. So there's going to be a lot of teams that will be looking at DiPietro to sign to be maybe that third goalie or maybe even a backup. So like I said, I like that the Bruins are trying to jump the gun a little bit and lock him up.
My point with DiPietro is we have his concerns about his size, and if people if he's not the biggest goalie, and the Bruins have had concerns with that in the past. Here is my issue, right? And this is just me. I don't know if this is anybody else. The worst thing you can do is not try him. Let's say you throw him out there, and then he's getting beat in spots where he shouldn't be beaten because of his size. Okay, then that's an issue. But let's say he comes out and has a great stretch of starts in the NHL. Oh, we might have something here. The Bruins haven't seen him as a starter or as an NHL goalie. They just haven't in general. As the backup to Swayman, he has not played as an NHLer for the Boston Bruins besides preseason, which doesn't really count. So I would say throw him out there against an NHL team. Maybe you can put him out there against the Sabres on next Sunday or something, or whatever. I don't know, and see if he's ready to go, and see how he goes. See how he does. If he does good, great. If he doesn't do good, then okay, then that's an issue. So I would, before signing him, Kenny, I don't know if you agree, I'd put him in an NHL game and see how he does.
Yeah, I would love to see him in an NHL game. I think both Bussey and DiPietro didn't look that great in the preseason, but it's a whole season further now. Like, DiPietro has looked so much more confident. And Bussey too. I mean, Bussey is just a completely different goalie when he's confident, but DiPietro had the better numbers last year. I think that you should try him. I know it's going to be tough right now because the team just isn't that good. I don't know if I want to subject DiPietro to 40 shots in the NHL while he's trying to gear up for an AHL playoff run, but I don't see the harm really. Obviously, I have the same stance on all the prospects. Anybody who shows any promise, you got to at least give him a few games in the NHL to see if he can play. For goalies, it's obviously different. You can't give goalies, 10 starts down the 8-game stretch here, obviously.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, why not? Even if he doesn't perform up to stuff, see what Bob Asenza thinks of how he plays. When I watch players like Lysell, I'm looking at, other things than points and goals and assists, because the Bruins team just isn't that good right now. So I'm sure it's the same with goalies, where he's just trying to pick up on stuff that he sees in NHL goalies. So
yeah, absolutely. I'm looking for in that situation, not the numbers really. I don't really look at numbers when it comes to AHL guys in the NHL. You know what I look for? I look for compete. I look for skill. And if I'm DiPietro, if he gets in an NHL game, you know what I'm looking for? I'm looking for him making more saves than not. I'm looking for him getting from post to post at a good speed. I'm looking at him, just reading the play well. That's what I'm looking for. When it comes to like forwards and defenders, I'm looking for forwards like Fabian Lysell, for example. You know what I've looked for the past 6 games he's been in the NHL? I've been looking for him not in the points department, although it would be nice for him to get a point or a goal here, right? But I'm looking for him playing along the wall, getting pucks free from battles. Where's the compete? Where's the skill? Where's the want? And he's had it. He definitely has had it, right, Kenny?
Yeah. Do you want to save this for later, or you want me to talk about Lysell here?
We can save that for later, but just a quick thing on Lysell, real quick.
Yeah, Lysell's looked a lot better than I thought he would. It took a little bit for him to get going in the AHL, but I think having a guy like Patrick Brown sitting next to him every night helps kind of level him out, and he looks a lot more confident in the NHL, which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. David, what are your thoughts on Fabian Lysell and all these AHL guys in the NHL lineup? Lysell, Callahan, Mitchell.
With Callahan, I think he was a great pickup when the Bruins got him. Mitchell, I feel like he flamed out earlier than we expected. He was a part of that deal that brought over Regula as well, and I think a lot of people were hoping that Regula was going to become something, but Mitchell was more than just a throw-in. Like I do believe the Bruins expected him to be something. The same can be said about DiPietro too, I guess. He was traded along with Jonathan Marenberg, who I believe was spotted in Providence a week ago or 2 weeks ago. Yeah, so I don't think he's actually signed anything yet, but he was spotted at their practice, so that's a good sign for him. But for a guy like Jack Studnicka, who really didn't do anything, getting DiPietro was a win in itself, but then to have another prospect come along with him, that's good management, in my opinion, of kind of lost resources in Studnicka. So I know we're going to get into Lysell in a bit, so I won't mention too much, but obviously I'm got a bit of a soft spot when it comes to Fabian Lysell, and everyone should know that by now. But it is nice to see him up in the show. Obviously, he's not doing exactly what I expected out of him so far, and I'm not sure if I'll ever see what I want to see, but it is nice to see him in the B rather than the P.
Yeah, that is for sure. So Providence in action against Springfield here today, 3:05 start. They only have a few games to go. Oh, by the way, okay, I put it out on Twitter last night, and I'm going to announce it officially here, okay, because on my YouTube channel, I cover Boston Bruins games. Well, when Boston Bruins season ends, I'm gonna have a little void, okay, and I need to fill that void. I have flow, so you know what I'm going to do? Live commentary of Providence Bruins playoff hockey. Let's go. I'm doing it. I'm excited. So
I'm excited. I don't get to watch these games, so you're doing me a favor.
Well, David, I'm doing you a favor. How about that?
Damn right.
So you'll be getting some coverage of Providence Bruins hockey over on my channel. For those who don't have Flow, you should get it if you don't have it. But if you don't have it, you can tune in and listen in live. So Kenny's going to be tweeting out the goals. Mark will be live tweeting the game, and I'll be giving the play-by-play. So we're going to have a ton of coverage of the Providence Bruins Calder Cup playoff run here at Black and Gold Productions. So definitely stay tuned for that, especially when the Boston season ends. Pretty much a lot of our content probably here is going to be about the Providence Bruins because of the fact they're going to be in the Calder Cup playoffs. So definitely stay tuned for that. So let's talk, okay? The Philadelphia Flyers fired John Tortorella, and David already is giving his thoughts with his scratching his head. The Flyers have fired John Tortorella as their head coach. A lot of people came out and said, Bruin. Okay? A lot of people were thinking that maybe he is the next head coach of the Boston Bruins. Okay? I don't know if that's the right idea or the wrong idea. I'm going to do a roundtable discussion. Chat, you guys can hop into, for those who are listening live. You can hop into. Kenny? John Tortorella, the next head coach of the Boston Bruins. Does it sound good or does it sound awful?
I'm actually a huge fan of John Tortorella, but I never really considered him to be a Boston Bruins coach. And in that aspect, I say probably not, especially with the amount of young players coming through. I don't think that they should be playing scared. Just seeing the mess that went on, just the embarrassment of how Michkov has been handled this year. Second on the team in points, and he's being sat in the stands for what? Like, come on. Imagine if Mason Lohrei got punished for every single mistake he made. He'd probably be in Providence right now, and we'd be calling him a bust. It's just, I think where this team is going, you need a coach that's not a friend, somebody who is tough on certain players, and somebody who can let up a little bit on some other players. I just think John Tortorella is a really cookie cutter coach where it's like it's his way or the highway. If you don't really fit into his mold, then you're not going to like him. And I just think with the amount of players coming up with, different wants and what they need for development, I don't necessarily think John Tortorella is going to be the guy. If he does end up signing as a coach, good luck to everybody who goes out to those Bruins games here in B&G. Tom, Jason, good luck, talking to him after a 7-2 loss, because that'll be fun. You might end up on a few Twitter clips, bar down, TSN, good luck.
Oh my God. Yeah. I can only imagine. Okay. We've said on this show that Fabian Lysell has kind of an ego. Okay. David, stop. Okay. I know you're thinking. Fabian Lysell has an ego. John Tortorella has a massive ego. They would butt heads. And I don't want to know. I don't even want to I don't even want to think about it. I'm throwing up the X. No thanks on John Tortorella. I don't even want to find out what some of these players would do with Tortorella. I think Tortorella would drive the Bruins nuts. I think the Bruins would drive Tortorella nuts. I think everything would go to shit immediately if the Bruins signed Tortorella. David?
I feel like Mark is faking his illness just so he doesn't have to talk about this nonsense. John Tortorella in Boston would be explosive. The only people who would enjoy having Tortorella in Boston are people who enjoy content. He's not I'm saying this from a personal opinion. He's not a great head coach. He's really had no success anywhere he's ever gone outside of a couple stops, but he has quotes for days. The only reason I would want to see him come to Boston is so that Zadorov could absolutely fill him in. Sam, you are right. If Lysell does have that ego they speak about, that would quickly be burned out by a guy like Torts. In my opinion, there's absolutely nothing positive that could come from hiring a guy like Tortorella, especially if it seems like this offseason they want to set a new culture and really come in with fresh ideas and things like that. So I almost don't want to see a recycle. I'd like to see a new head coach who's never been a head coach in the NHL before. Someone who has some, big backing behind him from some of the minor leagues or college or something. I know David Carl is a big one that people talk about, right? That's a guy that I would like to see brought in. But if Bruce Cassidy can't make it in Boston because of the way he treats players, then John Tortorella would just be an absolute no. There is one, I know that we're talking about Tort specifically, but the other name that I don't want to see brought to Boston, just since we're on the topic of not bringing people in, Joel Quenneville. I don't want to see him brought in. And the reason, he is good with young players. I just finished listening to the Bruins Beat podcast with Evan Marinofsky, and they spoke about how good he is with young players. And he is good with young players. But with all the shit that the Bruins went through with that Mitchell guy, and then the shit that Quenneville is going through, I think Quenneville is going to get another opportunity in the NHL, but it should not be with Boston.
Oh my God. Yeah, I don't even want to think about that. That'll be a PR disaster. John Tortorella, a 2004 Stanley Cup champion. That was his only Stanley Cup he's won as a head coach. He was with the 2004 Lightning. So he's right. Not a ton of success. I mean, he's won a Stanley Cup.
But when, Sam? When?
What?
He won in what, 2004, you said?
Yeah.
That's 21 years ago, man. He's still stuck in 2004, and that's half of his problem.
Damn.
Yes. Yeah, so I wasn't even alive then. So that probably speaks to I wouldn't even be born for 2 years after Torts won that cup. But to your point, like, you talk about Lysell's ego, and I know I use the word confidence a lot. Like, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing to have a little bit of an ego and trust your game. Like, I don't want it to be arrogance, but having a little confidence in your stuff, like, I think every player needs that. And having John Tortorella burn that down would be a problem.
Michkov went through the same thing. Michkov has confidence, and Tortorella smashed it. Okay.
Do you see him now? It's like a weight has been lifted off his shoulder. He's been insane since Tortorella left.
He scored like 2 goals against the Sabres yesterday. It was ridiculous. I remember seeing a picture. It was like a week comparison. So he's sitting on the bench, and Michkov was sitting there like this. For those who are listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, go back and watch the YouTube VOD. He's in there like this. A screenshot yesterday was him of like this, and he's smiling. He's like, oh, yeah, this is great. Relaxed shoulders. He's like budging with the guys next to him. Like, he is into it. Okay, man, I'm telling you, something went down. Something went down in Philadelphia, because there is no way that's not a coincidence. There's no way that's not a coincidence.
Well, did you hear about what Danny Briere was saying? He was like, yeah, we like him, but it was whatever. He was saying some stuff where I could definitely see something happening, or something that he does was not working with these younger guys. So, yeah. And I don't know if Tortorella would even want to coach the Bruins. I think of it as a prestigious job because it's an original 6 team, and they're my favorite team. So I would definitely coach if I had the opportunity. But I don't know if he wants to go to another team that's kind of beginning that retool, rebuild phase.
100%. I'm with you on that. I don't know if he would be the guy, right? Somebody said Mike Sullivan. Okay. He has the experience. He has the championships. He has the resume. Sure. Would he want to go from one dwindling team to another is my question, right? Because Pittsburgh, they're in kind of the same spot the Bruins are at the moment. If we take a look at the draft lottery, Pittsburgh's just ahead of us, right? Is Sullivan the answer? I don't think so.
I also don't want to jump the gun. I mean, right? He still has a job, so
Yeah.
I would hate to be like dedicating all this time to like, oh my God, Mike Sullivan, great coach for the Bruins, and then he ends up not getting fired or ends up going somewhere else. He's not even on the job market right now. And during that 6-hour B&G live stream, I know we talked about coaching, and it's going to be difficult to pull some of those better college coaches from the college ranks where life is just a lot easier, right? The season's only a couple months. They get to recruit everybody, so they don't have to just, implement game plans. They get to pick every single player that enters the program and stuff like that. So I think David Carl has like one of the best jobs in college hockey. So I don't know if he's ready to leave that yet.
No, I agree. I'm going to bring up this guy's name as a possible head coach. If Providence goes on a run, Ryan Mougenel. Kenny is nodding his head.
I threw in Ryan Mougenel's name earlier. I have no idea if that's gonna work out or not. He's been head coaching Providence for I think 4 seasons now, and he's done incredible work with the prospects. I think they've been really doing well, and I don't know. Maybe they would want an NHL coach. I don't know if the Boston Bruins are necessarily a job where you can come out of the AHL and start coaching. I don't see the Bruins as that. I see like the Sharks as a team that might pull like a really successful head coach from the AHL, but I don't know if the Bruins would do that. So it's definitely something interesting, and I would throw Ryan Mougenel's hat in the ring for sure.
David?
I think it depends on what their plan is next season. So let's just say that Sullivan does get fired or he steps down or whatever. If the Bruins can make a promise to Sullivan that they're going to compete next season and kind of give him a guarantee they're going to go out and spend some money, fill out the roster to to compete next year, then I could see it being more of a Mike Sullivan, David Carl, someone who can come in and kind of, work with the mixture of older players and younger players and really go in and compete. If they're thinking more along the lines of like, we're going to take 2 or 3 years and rebuild, fill out the roster with younger players and, kind of let them go through the motions for a couple of years, then I could see a guy like Mougenel getting a shot. But if they're planning to compete next year, I don't think you're going to see a guy like Mougenel. Someone had mentioned in the chat, Todd Nelson. I'm not overly familiar with the name. If you guys have anything on him.
I don't, but to your point, I hope that's not the case where the Bruins are trying to be that quick with it and turn around and try to compete next year. I think hockey is so rush. These guys got to rush to the NHL. These guys got to rush to college. These guys got to do this. And we're seeing it right now with Dean Letourneau, who probably could have used a year in the USHL, ends up rushing to BC, not playing that great. I just hope that they take their time, they relax, they have prospects and picks. Just let them develop and let them come up through time.
He's the head coach. He's the head coach of the Hershey Bears.
Okay, so same idea. He's AHL. So I would put him in the same ring as Mougenel. Kenny, to touch on that point, and I touched on this a while ago, I think the signings this offseason are really going to show us where their brain is at in terms of if they plan to compete next year or not. Like, we talked about guys like Marner. If they go ahead and sign a guy like Marner, then they're planning to compete next year, right? But if they kind of take that $27 million and spread it around to some younger players, give the guys in the AHL, like Providence, give them some more run with the NHL, then I think it'll be easier to see that this is more of a long-term project. So I think this offseason it's critical for the Bruins because it can go one of several different ways. And a lot of it boils down to what they do with the front office, what they do with the coaching staff, and what they do with the roster. All of that needs to mesh very well, no matter what their plan is going into next season. They need to have a very clear-cut plan. I don't want to sit here in August of next year going, who's going to be the second line right wing? And then in March of next year, be doing the exact same thing, right? So they really gotta mesh these three together in terms of the front office, the coaching staff, and the roster, and really figure it out and just have a plan and stick to it. If it's a 5-year plan to get back to contending, it's a 5-year plan. If you're planning on going into next year, then saddle up and let's do it. But make sure that everyone is on the same page and make sure that all the philosophies align with what the plan is for the team for the near future and also for the I guess the further future, the long-term future.
Yeah, and I think the Bruins have a lot of money right now. I think it would be in their best interest to maybe offer sheet somebody, put some pressure on some other teams to sign these young guys. I know Nyes is a restricted free agent. Would love to see them put some pressure on Toronto. I love offer sheets. I love what St. Louis did last year, where they get Holloway and Broberg, and they kind of put Edmonton in a bind. I want to see it more. I know that the owners won't be happy, but I think once teams start doing it, the ball starts rolling. Like, it's going to be very, very exciting. So, and I'm willing to give up a pick for Nyes, obviously. So there really is no downside.
The other side of that too, Kenny, they have a lot of I'm sorry to cut you off there. They have draft capital now. Like, at the deadline, they picked up some of these extra picks, right? So you can look at it a couple different ways. Like you said, they can sign someone to an offer sheet and get rid of a pick because they probably feel more comfortable now getting rid of a pick now that they have all these extra picks. The other side of it is they can package a lot of these picks and trade for someone. Or they can sit back and be like, 5-year plan and make a lot of these picks and put them in, the certain areas of where they're going to be next year and in the future. But again, I think it really all boils down to, making sure everyone's on the same page. And that needs to happen before the draft. I'm sure one of you two know. When is the lottery?
Oh, they just announced the date. They just announced the date, too.
I know the draft, I think, is June 28th and 29th. I don't know when the lottery is.
Lottery's probably sometime in May.
B&G Live draft lottery?
Yeah. 6:30. Man, I'm down. 6:30 Eastern time, May 7th. So it's a Tuesday, 6:30 Eastern time, which is 8:00 p.m. Newfoundland time.
Oh,
also,
that's for 2024.
Oh, you're right. Oops.
They have not announced the 2025 draft lottery yet. Anyway.
Okay. Well,
regardless, I'm down to do a watch party of the draft lottery as well. I'm willing to do it. I'm down to sit down and just go, hey, let's see who gets the top picks.
absolutely.
I think that'd be a great stream to do. I'm down.
And then also
The other side of it too, guys, is like considering the run that the Bruins have been on in terms of playoff success, when's the last time that Bruins fan has been excited about the lottery? You know, it's kind of refreshing to be in this situation where you're like, here we go. You know,
2015.
I think so. And
the McDavid year.
Fuck, that didn't go well, did it?
No, I mean, yeah, not a great year, but look.
But you're right. That's probably the last year that we considered like being excited about the lottery. So that's something else to look at. Is that be thankful. A lot of these teams don't have the success the Bruins have had in the past here with the longest playoff streak, which is obviously going to end this year. But it is it's a little bit refreshing to be on this side of it.
It's projected to be in May.
Yeah, that's not surprising. I mean, if it was May 7th last year, you're probably looking at similar date. It'll probably be sometime within that second week of May.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm down to a draft lottery stream. If they get a top 5 pick, I'm down to do a draft reaction stream. I'm down to do the free agent frenzy cover. Like, there's so much stuff we can do.
Content.
True.
Let's go.
Yeah, Neil and I are gonna have a fun few years here if Boston decides to go with the 3-year, 2-year plan.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's take a look at Fabian Lysell. David, your favorite subject.
My boy.
So he's with the NHL club, but he's got 5 games. He's got 6 games under his belt now. Yeah, 6 games under his belt in the NHL. Does not have a point yet, but in the AHL this season, 11 goals, 23 assists for 34 points. If those numbers were to hang, those would be a career low in the AHL since he went pro. Kenny, what kind of future does Fabian Lysell have with the Bruins here?
I think this is a great time to talk about what I was talking about earlier with the rush. I know as somebody who posts a lot of Providence Bruins stuff, I get that comment pretty frequently. Oh, why isn't Lysell called up? The truth is, if he was called up when the fans wanted him to be called up early in the season, this would not be even close to the Lysell that we got. He was struggling in Providence for a while. He was making just dumb plays. We talked about it, I think, the last time I was on here. Lysell turns the puck over a lot, refuses to dump it in, tries to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders going in 1-on-3 while his teammates are changing. Turns over the puck, they rush the other way. It just happens so many times to the point where I can tell you that that's what keeps happening. I know a big knock on his game is his wall play, and I think that's something that everybody who's watched Providence this season expected. Obviously, I'm not shocked that he's not great on the wall. He's going to have to get better, maybe put on a few more pounds. Would have been great to have Brad Marchand around, maybe teach him some of them those tricks with his stick on the wall, but I think he's played well relative to, how bad the Bruins are right now. He's played pretty well. I know a big thing that I've noticed is his ability to get to the prime scoring areas. I know Joe Sacco talked about it in an interview a few weeks ago or a few days ago. He really isn't getting to the front of the net. He isn't getting the scoring opportunities that we're all hoping that he's going to get. But I still think he's making good plays. He's getting shots, which is something that he wasn't really doing in Providence earlier in the year. And I posted, I think, a week or two before he was called up. He was playing in a game in Springfield. And I was like, listen, I don't know if he's going to be an NHL guy. But if he keeps making plays like this and he plays with the ego and he plays with the confidence, these are the types of plays that you can expect. And it was all from the first 2 shifts. He had 3 highlights from the first 2 shifts of the game where he's creating chances. So I'm happy that he's playing well. His future, they have time, right? He has one more year, and then he's restricted free agent. So they do have time if they don't think Lysell is going to be a fit for next year. I don't know if there's going to be any harm in having him play in the starting lineup next year, depending on where they go. Obviously, everything's still up in the air, as we talked about. But I think fans should be excited. And I know I see a lot of comments like, oh, I was right, Lysell isn't playing well. If your first comment is about Lysell after watching the Bruins get smacked 6-2 by the Ducks or 7-2 by the Kings, you're just a prospect hater, honestly. I know I talk a lot about prospects. Dave says he has a soft spot for Lysell. I know I have a soft spot for Merkulov, but looking at it all, looking at everything, how the team is playing, even though he isn't putting up points, I think he's still playing pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. From the little sample size that we've seen in the NHL, I think Lysell has looked confident. I actually liked him the best when he was playing with Zacha and Geekie on that second line. I don't really like him with Lindholm and Husnudinov. It just seems like they don't have any chemistry there. It looked like there was some natural chemistry between that trio.
Yeah, and I think that the Bruins, where they are right now, even though Lysell is getting top 6 minutes, he's not playing with top 6 players, which is a huge thing. I think players are playing out of order. I think players are playing in roles that they have never played before. Husnudinov obviously is not used to playing those top 6 minutes in the NHL. So putting him with a player like that is difficult, obviously. So, good for Lysell. I know a lot of people expect these guys to get called up and start playing like Macklin Celebrini and be an instant impact on just not a good team and one of the worst teams on paper in the NHL. But he's played well given the circumstances.
100%. David, we have talked about on this show the void of a consistent second line right wing, right? If the Bruins give Lysell that second line right wing spot next season, if they don't go out and sign one this summer, what is your prediction? What do you want to see out of Lysell? Do you want to see growth? Do you want to see him actually what are you looking for out of him?
Yeah, I'm trying not to put too much stock into how he does this season in terms of stats. I'd like to see growth right now, and you guys kind of hit the nail on the head right now. He's getting the top 6 minutes, but he's not playing with top 6 players, and it's very true, and it sucks because Elias Lindholm is supposed to be a top 6 player, but he's not playing like one right now, right? I would love to see Lysell play with a guy like Matt Patra up in the NHL, a guy who works really hard. He's down. He's not afraid of the boards. And I feel like he could open up the ice for a guy like Lysell. I actually think Lysell would work well with someone who, a big net presence too, like a guy like Justin Brazeau or, oh my God, who's the guy that we had last year? James Van Riemsdyk. A guy like that has a lot of net front presence for the Bruins, I think would work well. So if there was some way to put Lysell, Patra, and then someone who's one of those dirty players that sits in front of the net, I think that line might be able to do something. One thing that I have taken away from his game so far in this 4-game stretch that he's had is that he hasn't stood out in a bad way. Nobody is looking at him going, oh my God, he doesn't belong here. Oh my God, he's making all these bad plays. I know he's having turnovers, and that's one thing, but he's not sticking out in terms of, oh, he's the reason that another team is scoring. He's played in 10 games. He has 9 shots, so he's averaging just about 2 shots a game. He's averaging about 12 or 13 minutes of ice time. So he is what you're expecting a call-up like this to be right now. Obviously, he hasn't gotten on the stat sheet, but he's also a 0 on the plus-minus, so he hasn't been a negative towards the team either. So there definitely has been some positives to take away from this. Obviously there's some negatives too, and Kenny, you touched on it. We've touched on it for a couple pods now about being afraid to get down the dirty areas. I think that's just a little bit of who he is as a player, and it's a little bit unfortunate. I don't know if he's ever going to grow into that get down and dirty in the corners that the Bruins love to do, the dump and chase type of hockey. Sam, like you mentioned, it is unfortunate that Marchand is not around to teach him those things, because I do feel that his game he is fairly similar to Marchand in terms of wanting the puck on his stick and wanting to do things himself. So I do believe Marchand could be a good voice for him. but yeah, I mean, it's nice to see him get ice time with the big club. But if the reports are true that he feels entitled to a roster spot, I hope a stretch like this kind of opens his eyes in terms of what's expected of him. And if let's just say he plays the rest of the season, but he doesn't score or he doesn't assist, is that going to knock that ego down a little bit? Or is he going to take it more as, oh, I still belong here, I'm just not playing with the right people, And it's hard to say what kind of mindset he'd be in at the end of the year if that does happen. Obviously, I want to see him get on the stat sheet, but if the reports are true about this ego that he has, there's a part of me that hopes that he can knock himself down a peg or two just to kind of work harder at the things that he's not good at and then continue to improve on the things that we consider him to be good at. He has one more year, like you said. If the Bruins don't have a clear plan for him, I think he'll be shopped around a lot between now and the next trade deadline. Probably not for anything close to where he was drafted, which is, again, unfortunate. But I've said it once, and I've said it a million times. I think it was a good pick at 21. Obviously, hindsight is 2020, but considering a lot of mock drafts had him in the top 10 to top 15, I know that COVID played a part in this as well, but I still stand by the fact that they drafted him where they drafted him.
Yeah, I think you made a few interesting points. Like, obviously, people are like, well, he's not scoring. But I can name you, I don't know, maybe 10 Bruins who aren't scoring. And then you said, well, he's also really not, sticking out as a negative. But I could tell you 10 Bruins who are sticking out as a negative. So I think the place that he's in is really good. And I know that people talk about his ego a lot. I wonder if this year in Providence played a role, maybe playing alongside Patrick Brown all season, maybe played a role. But who knows? I mean, I'm not Lysell. Only Lysell knows how he's feeling. But I don't know when his streak here is going to end. I don't know when he's going to be sent back down to Providence. I'm assuming it will be soon. I don't think he's going to finish out the season in Boston, but he's been playing well. So,
did the Bruins just finish that road trip?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is the time you'll probably see a little bit of movement between now and when's their next game? Tomorrow?
Tuesday.
Yeah. So probably I could see him being sent down sometime before that game.
Probably tomorrow.
Yeah. It's unfortunate because I was hoping that John Farinacci would be healthy by now, so then we could see a little bit of him, but he's not right now. He's still injured, so I don't know.
Unfortunate news.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know what Lysell's future looks like. I honestly think it's kind of a make or break year for him. Because obviously it is, because it's last year of his contract, but I think that in general it's kind of a make or break year. First 3 years of his contract, he's been mostly in the AHL. I think it's now it's do or die, put up or shut up year. If you can't make the NHL roster, you're not destined to be an NHLer, and I think some fans aren't willing to accept that.
I think the thing that would break my heart the most is if he goes to another team, I'll cheer for him. I hope that he does well. But what would really break my heart is if he goes to another team and does the things that he wasn't willing to do here. I think that's what would hurt me the most is like if he goes to, I'm just going to use a random Washington, and all of a sudden he gets down and dirty in the corners and he's, playing the way the Bruins want him to play. I think that's what would hurt me the most.
Well, I don't know if that would be like a want. Maybe that's just the way that, maybe the coaching is different or something, but I think that would hurt with like any player. He's a first round pick of the Bruins and then struggles and then goes to another team and plays really well. Yeah, that would be like, a punch to the gut for sure.
Yeah. The knife is already in. Don't twist it, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not something that I would want to see the Bruins do is give him up and then just see him just flourish somewhere else. And all you can say is, oh, what could have been,
Yeah. And this is what I preach. I'm like, listen, I'm a huge Merkulov supporter. I think he's great. Just give him a chance. If you give him a chance, he comes up, he doesn't play well. I have the closure. We all know that he can't play at the NHL level. I'm still going to support him, but then you can move on. But not having those answers and having them go somewhere is kind of those times where you see guys get moved and then start playing out of their minds. So just give these kids some chances. That's all I'm asking for. And I'm not talking about 2 or 3 games at a time. I'm talking about an extended look. If you can give Oliver Wahlstrom 20 games, the way that he was playing as a negative, taking offensive zone penalties game after game, I think you can give a guy like Lysell, Merkulov, Minton, maybe you can give those guys some time to play. I mean, Minton's a little bit different. He's played in the NHL before, but Lysell and Merkulov haven't. So you also got to give him some time to, get set up to the pace and, how quick they need to move and stuff like that. And I don't think you get that through 1 or 2 games. You need to give them, an extended look.
My point, and I agree with you, Kenny, my point is, was Oliver Wahlstrom outscoring his mistakes there, Neely? I don't think so.
No, and he had a way better team than what Lysell's around right now. So, just saying.
That's just my thoughts on it. Was he outscoring his mistakes? I don't think so.
I don't want to dog Wahlstrom because he's been playing really well in Providence, and depending on where this team goes, he could definitely be a guy that I would like to re-sign to be kind of that bubble player. A guy that stays in the AHL until you need a third line winger. But yeah, that was a brutal stretch in Bruins hockey. I cannot believe that he was up for that long. So.
We were live when he got claimed off waivers, and we were all like, "Oh, that'd be so Bruins to sign him," and then they did, and it was just history from there.
It was one of the funniest moments we've had on this podcast when Oliver Wahlstrom got claimed, and we all just went face palm to face. We just face palmed the entire thing. That was a classic BNG pod moment. 100% it was. So let's get to the games of the next week as we get into the next 3 games of suffering. So they play the Capitals on Tuesday at TD Garden. Ovechkin needs 6. It would be such a Bruins thing to let Ovechkin score all 6.
I can see it happening, though. The way the season's going, he might score 8, really. He might just break it and then some.
They play the Sabres at 3:00. That might be must-watch hockey. If Ovechkin scores more than 2 goals, we might be having an oh shit moment. I don't know. Kenny, what are your thoughts on this game against the Caps on Tuesday?
I'm not even going to say I'm not going to watch it because I keep saying that and then I keep watching. So I'm not even going to go there. But, yeah. Well, at least we get to see a good team play, I guess. Who knows? I mean, listen, if you're losing 7-2 to the Kings and 6-2 to the Ducks, I wouldn't be shocked if the Capitals put up 10. So,
oh, God, please don't.
Yep. Who knows?
David?
Yeah, I'm interested to see what the over-under is on Sam shutting off his stream for this one. Evan Marinowski made a point on a recent episode of the Bruins Beat about Jeremy Swayman and how he expects him to look a lot better next year with a full training camp and, it being his second year as the guy rather than his first year as the guy. So the rest of the season, I'm really going to try not to put too much stock into things that I feel don't need to be answered right now. Looking at a game against the Capitals, I think this is just a straightforward scheduled loss. But it would be very, very Bruin to come out and win this one after all the losses they've had. They just had their worst road trip since sometime in the 60s. It was like 0-6 or something. It's the worst road trip they've had since the 60s.
Okay, the Bruins are on an 8-game losing streak. This is their worst losing streak since 1997.
Amazing.
Well, this is the time to have it. So
yeah, we're spoiled, right?
On this streak,
we're spoiled by success. So again, we should consider ourselves thankful that we've had this many years of contention with a few blips mixed in.
Once again, I reintroduced the draft lotteries. The draft lottery odds are going up in the Bruins' favor. That was 3% just a few days ago. Now it's 6%.
I think it's fair to. Sorry, go ahead, Sam.
See what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like we're pretty safely out of the playoff race now. So that's good. We can focus on losing more, because I know there were some fans who were still holding out hope that, oh, there's still a chance, but I feel like we're kind of out of it now. So we can embrace the tank. Was it miserable for Misa?
Yes. Or hashtag shitty for Schaefer. They play the Capitals Tuesday. They then go up to Montreal and take on the Canadiens on Thursday. Canadiens are playing Florida right now. Oh, God, it's Marchand's first time playing the Canadiens. It's not in a Bruins jersey. Oh, still hurts. They're playing Florida's going to the power play. Oh, boy. Montreal, Florida happening right now, but the Bruins play the Canadiens on Thursday. Canadiens, they're pushing for a wild card spot. They are 2 points out of a wild card spot. Kenny, what are your thoughts on this game against the Canadiens on Thursday? Do the Bruins dare to play spoiler to the Canadiens?
I mean, I hope that they go in with some urgency. They go in with some pride. I mean, this is a game I would like to take because it's against a rival. Get these guys like Middlestad, who's Nadinov, integrated into that, hate Montreal culture. So, I mean, I guess I'd like to see a win, but if they lose, miserable for Misa, baby. So you got to embrace the tank, like Dave said.
David?
Yeah, I'm just searching up something here now because I'm going to start looking at games differently. Rather than focusing on what the Bruins are doing, I'm going to make a list of the UFAs and RFAs from other teams that the Bruins are playing, and then kind of focus on what they are and seeing if there's anything that that the Bruins can kind of look at. So with Montreal, there's not a lot in terms of what you're looking at. A couple names that I would consider would be Christian Dvorak, Joe Armia. I know they're both plus 30 or getting there, but if the Bruins are planning on competing now, these may be names that you're looking at. Now, if you're looking at more of that 5-year plan, you're probably looking further down the line. And a couple guys, I guess one guy in particular, Philip Mieser is a RFA. So, Kenny, if you're looking at guys to sign to those offer sheets, these may be the type of guys that we look at, are the younger ones, 21, 22, get them out of the other team system and kind of see what we're dealing with. But the Montreal's having an interesting year. I didn't expect them to do anything really, and I don't know if a lot of teams pegged them to, but they're on a nice little run, so good for them.
It's about time for them, and Patrick Laine has really turned that organization around. I'm telling you, when he came in and he started playing, Montreal started playing well, and look at them now. They might be in a first round playoff matchup. Excuse me, that might be their first playoff appearance since 2021. David, get Carolina ready because they're playing the Hurricanes next Saturday at the Garden, and that's in the final game we're going to cover this week. Oh dear, is all I have to say about that. They're playing the Capitals and the Canadiens, and they're taking on the Hurricanes. Hurricanes second in the Metro at 92 points, 44, 24, and 4. Miserable for Misa, Kenny?
Yeah. My thoughts on Carolina just go back to that thrashing. I forgot the score. What was it? 7-8-2, 8-1, whatever it was. And then my other memory is sitting in my bed watching TV, watching the Bruins unobstructed views, and then seeing Zadorov stick snap with 20 seconds left in the game, and then Tuukka Rask, Raycroft, and Bergeron all holding their heads like, this did not just happen. And I think we all shared that this did not just happen moment. Yeah, another loss. I mean, you have to embrace the tank. You got to laugh at yourself a little bit here. You're just going to be so miserable down this stretch.
Yeah. I was in a restaurant in Smithfield, Rhode Island when that Zadorov turnover happened. And I was live on stream when the 8-2 game happened back on Halloween. My friends came in and beat me up with glow sticks. And then I called Hampus Lindholm's last goal before he got injured. And then I was invaded by the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Hell of a night.
You don't say. That's a legendary stream moment. You guys should go back and watch that VOD. That was a hell of a night. This is going to be a loss, David. That's for sure. It's going to be a loss.
Yeah, I think it's safe to pencil this one in as a scheduled loss as well. If you want to go back to what I just said about free agents, you're looking at guys like Taylor Hall, Jack Roslovic, Jesper Fast, Tyson Yost, Ryan Suzuki, Slavin, some young guys, some older guys, a little bit mixed in between. So, if you want to look at it that way, there's some names you can kind of focus on moving forward. But it's tough. It's a tough time of year, especially when you're almost expecting a loss to get excited about anything. I hope I see some growth from some of the young kids, make it competitive, but I would like to see them lose this one for the simple fact of, upping those odds in the draft. Carolina always seems to give the Bruins a hard time, so I feel like out of the 3 games that we just looked at, this is the one that you could probably pencil in as a loss more than any of the other ones.
Yeah, 100%. So that's the schedule for the Bruins for the week this week for the Bruins, and yikes! That's all I got to say about that. We did not have a chance to answer questions last week, so we are going to have an extended Q&A session. If you have any questions, make sure to join the live chat. If you're not watching on YouTube, by the way, go over to the YouTube channel, the Black and Gold Productions YouTube channel, and hit the like button. We need a massive like spike over on YouTube if you have not yet. Make sure to head over there, hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, go join the live chat, and ask us your questions. We'll be happy to answer them here today, as we have an extended time to answer some of your questions here. I'll start the conversation here. If the Bruins, let's say the Bruins get a top 5 draft pick, right? Who would you want to take at, let's say they get 4th? Who would you want the Bruins to take out of the top 5 projected? Who do you think they could use the most? Kenny?
I mean, they could use any of those players, but I would like to get Hagens at 4. I think that's pretty realistic as well. I would also like to see Hagens go back to BC this year. I don't think it's necessary, especially with the Bruins situation, to bring him over right now, if that was the case. I think that the Bruins can allow him to play that extra year before coming over. I just haven't seen him dominate the way that we've seen other top picks dominate. So, and he's playing on a line with Ryan Leonard and Gabe Perreault. So it is a little bit scary. You've seen his draft stock fall from 1 to 2 to 3, and now I think it's around 4. So Hagens would definitely be my pick.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, apparently the Bruins, Don Sweeney was in Lethbridge, and he was looking at Roger McQueen as a potential Bruins look. David, what are your thoughts on McQueen?
If you can, let's just say that Latorno pans out, and then they get Roger McQueen, you have 2 centers that are above 6'5". That's massive down the middle. So if those guys can sit in the middle, then, I'm all for it. I don't know much about the prospects yet. I haven't really dived into it. But if you do end up with the number 4 pick, you're guaranteed one of Schaefer, Misa, Hagens, and then you could throw in, McQueen, Eklund, Caleb Denoyer, Anton Frondel. There's some big names out there. So if you get a number, I'd say even top 6. If you can land in the top 6, you should have a pretty good pick coming your way. Or, depending on how you're looking at it, a king's ransom of a trade package. So depending on what way they want to go for it, it could be interesting.
Yeah, 100%. Will the Bruins win a game the rest of the season? I cannot believe we are actually having this conversation I'll read you the games they have left. Okay, Capitals, Canadians, Hurricanes. Okay, they then play Buffalo, New Jersey, Chicago, Pittsburgh, New Jersey again.
So, like, at best, you're going 2-6.
I was thinking maybe one winnable game. I'm not hearing a lot of easy ones there.
Like Chicago, Buffalo, Montreal. If you can, you'd have to win 2 of those 3, but you're guaranteed to lose one of them. There's no way they're beating all 3 of them. So that's where I'm looking at it. I'm saying now. What did I say before? I said 3-9 when it was 12. So I was obviously wrong there. But yeah, I'll land on 2-6 down the stretch.
Yeah, but Buffalo and Buffalo and Montreal are definitely no gimmies. Well, actually, none of them are gimmies, but yeah, Bruins have struggled this season against Buffalo. So yeah, I'm with you. Maybe 2-6 if I'm being generous. I'm thinking 1-7 would be my take. So maybe they win 1 at the rest of the season.
I hope they win one more game to give us one last little hooray, they won a game, and then just lose the rest of the way. That's kind of what I'm hoping. Let's see. Would the Bruins try to trade up to second for Misa?
So again, it depends on. Sorry, go ahead, Sam.
No, I was just saying it depends on who gets what pick. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. So depending on how in love a team is with Misa, for one, and then also like the mock that I'm looking at right now has Schaefer going 1, Misa going 2, Higgins going 3, and Frondell going 4. So let's just say that Chicago lands at number 2 and the Bruins land at number 4. If the Blackhawks are really like Frondell for some reason, and they feel that Nashville is going to take Higgins at 3 and Schaefer's going number 1, and the Bruins make a call and say, we'll give you this, that, and the other thing for number 2, and we'll give you number 4 and a package of your choice, then it's possible it could happen. But it's hard to say because, like you said, Sam, you have to really look at how the other teams view these players. Some teams are not going to move no matter what you're offering because they see this guy as being, franchise altering. So it depends on who gets the picks, where they are. I mean, obviously, let's just hope that we ain't got to worry about it. The Bruins get some draft luck and land in that number 1 spot. Yeah. But if they do go to trade, having all these extra picks that they just got deadline could prove to be a very, very good thing, especially if that Florida pick ends up being a first.
I completely agree. Kenny?
Yeah, it's so hard to speak on it right now because we don't know who's getting those top 4 picks. Hopefully the Bruins get the number 1 pick and we don't have to worry about this at all. But yeah, it'll just depend on what the teams are and the order and what they're thinking. And yeah, I just think it's funny that earlier in the year, like halfway through the season, I think the Bruins were playing well, and I posted an article about who the Bruins are going to be going after at the draft if the season ended today, and I think the Bruins had like the 16th or the 18th pick, and I just threw Caleb Denoyer in there because I was like, I just want to write about Caleb Denoyer. It was obviously a fever dream at the time, and now it's just funny where we've just gone way past Denoyer. Like we're looking at top 5 at this point, so I just thought that was funny, but yeah, I don't know. We'll definitely have to see the draft order first.
Any thoughts on Jake O'Brien? Continues to get better every year in the OHL.
So he's a little bit small in terms of weight. So he's around 6 foot, but he's only 170 pounds. So he needs to put on some weight in order to really make it at the next level, I feel. But he's a young kid, so it is something that could definitely happen. From what I've seen so far, his offensive game is really flourishing, and he's starting to add a defensive side to it as well. If the Bruins are somewhere within like the 7 to 10 range and McQueen is gone, I could see O'Brien being on their list at that point. It's also going to depend on if he is center only or if he's got like Marner who comes in as a center but can play the wing. Because if you look at the future of the Bruins, if you have Dean Letourneau, Patra, Middlestat, a couple of these other guys down the middle, then you don't really need that center depth. Now, I know I'm looking probably a little bit further down than I should, and you're going to do more of a draft. My philosophy is always draft the best available, no matter what. The draft is not there to find hole or to fill holes. That's what free agency's for. The draft is there to take the best player available, no matter what. So if the Bruins see him as being the best available, then yeah, I mean, why not? But he needs to put on some weight in order to make it at the next level, I think.
Yeah, obviously it is tough because there's still so much time before the draft. So obviously we've seen guys like Jesperi Kotkaniemi like shoot up draft boards just hours before the draft. So you really have no idea. I mean, I don't watch a lot of the CHL. I've heard a lot of good things about O'Brien, but I don't know. I think, to Dave's point, even not looking that far into the future, I mean, you have Zaka, you have Elias Lindholm, you have Minton, you have Patra, you have, just Middlestad. You have a ton of guys that can play up the middle. And I think watching Providence this season, they've started to kind of try players out in different positions. We've seen Patra play the wing. We've seen Merkulov play the wing. We've seen Minton in a ton of different situations. So I think they're also preparing for having that versatility, which is always a good thing. Being able to play multiple positions just helps the player out, be able to move up and down the lineup. Because obviously we can't have 7 players playing center. So
They can't
And I feel oh, sorry, go ahead.
They can't run into what they had a few years ago where they have too many centers and not a lot of wingers, which is why their demise happened the way it did.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw in a question here as well. So assuming Schaefer's off the board by the time the Bruins pick, and the Bruins pick within the top 10, I think it's fair to say that they're going to go offense over defense, eh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at the names, there's really no one else in terms of defense who seems intriguing. So I think it's Jackson Smith if they fall that far, but let's hope that doesn't happen. But if Schaefer's off the board by the time the Bruins pick, I think it's safe to say they're going forward.
Yeah, and I also think their defense is actually not looking bad as we shape up for the future. Ty Gallagher, who has had an incredible start with Providence, he's made a few mistakes, but I honestly think that he could be a top 4 D-man. I think he could project to that. So that's a fantastic pick at 7 or at the 7th round. I think Freddie Brunet, if he keeps improving, he could be in the NHL. Obviously, Michael Callahan, another guy who's been playing really well. Jackson Edward, who's still in Providence, who hasn't played in a while, but he's another guy that has impressed me when he gets minutes. So I think Boston and Providence are pretty good at the defensive position. And isn't Myrenberg also a defenseman? So he's practicing in Providence. So Providence definitely has a lot more defensemen that are closer to the NHL that I don't think they need to draft a defenseman this year.
Yeah, Loke Johansson is a defenseman as well who has looked really good with Moncton. Depending on what he does next year, he may come pro. Kenny, I'd almost look at Bruno. We talked about this last week, maybe the week before, about Wotherspoon not re-signing, and a few of us said that we could see Brunet being that 7th defenseman next year. Depending on what happens. So that'd be interesting. I'm really loving, there was another, who else did Providence just recently sign? It was Gallagher and
Schmaltz,
both 7th-round picks. I think that's fantastic value. Like, I know that they're only signed to AHL contracts and stuff, but I love seeing these late-round picks do well. So seeing these 7th-round picks get snatched up, I don't know, makes my heart feel good.
Yeah. I commented on somebody's post. I was like, I don't know if it was yours. I was like, even if Jake Schmaltz and Ty Gallagher don't pan out, you see a pretty good return on investment for a 7th rounder, because there's 7th rounders that don't even make it to the pro level at the country that they're at. So I've definitely done a few draft reviews of Boston where guys in the Czech league can't even crack the number 1 Czech league after being selected in the 7th round. Jake Schmaltz did have his debut last night, and I thought he played pretty well, but it's difficult to speak on that when there's only 1 game played. So
yeah, absolutely. If you're not on YouTube, head over to the YouTube channel and keep asking some questions. We've got about 10 or 15 minutes to go here in the show. That would put them in a pickle if they had to pick Schaefer or Misa. It's what they would want.
That's a great situation to be in.
Right. I think it's,
you know what? If it was me and I had the first pick and it came into that and I honestly had them like graded evenly and there was nothing that separated them, I'd almost trade the pick to number 2 and be like, you know what? There's a lot of teams trying to come up. You know, I'm sure that you guys have someone that you want. What are you willing to give up? Drop back one place and then take whoever's left. If you have a philosophy in mind where you're like, you know, you want a forward or you want a defenseman, it's pretty easy. And obviously we haven't gotten into pre-draft rankings of the Bruins and what they feel going into next season, but I don't know. It might be an idea.
You would need to know the other team's draft plan. Obviously, Boston's going to go into it knowing who they want. If you don't want Schaefer, you need to make sure that the team you're trading to is only going to take Schaefer, and there's no way they budge. Because imagine you trade back one pick, and then the team ends up taking the guy that you wanted. It would just be a tough look.
Then just take the guy that you wanted in the first place and just forget about it. That's what I would do.
You could just not risk it. But, I mean, I think if you're a team like maybe San Jose, who could really use a guy like Schaefer over a guy like Misa, maybe you explore that a little bit. But like I said, you would have to know 100%.
That's so risky. That's so risky because if you trade that number 1 pick to the number 2 guy, to the number 2 pick to a team that you're like, the ball's in your court, and yet you secretly have a guy you want to take, and then they take that guy, it's going to make your number 2 pick feel like a massive letdown.
You can't do that though. If you secretly want a guy, then you wouldn't do it. It would have to be they are completely split evenly. Yeah, I fully agree with you there, Sam, for sure.
Yeah, so it's not worth the risk. Just take the guy you want and then just forget about it. You know? For Kenny, will Canada ever win a World Juniors Championship again?
I don't. Obviously, I think they will. I think the I don't even know what you'd call it. The curse of Easton Cowan will linger a little while longer. Sorry to say that to you, Parker, but you know, Canada's looking really good for the next 2 years. So, you know, I talk all this shit now, but yeah, I'm pretty sure. And USA is not looking that great next year. So, you know, next year might be Canada's year. So
I think Canada just needs to get rid of whoever's in power. They left off so many good players off of that roster because of politics and shit that they just got to go back to selecting who. They're too worried about who's going to play best with who, and they just need to get back to putting the best players out there and letting them figure it out.
Yeah, they also they were trying to like make an actual lineup opposed to just throwing the best players out there, and then they left off the biggest part of hockey, which was scoring, and they just could not score. So just unfortunate for them.
Yeah.
If the Bruins don't get Marner, who's the guy we could realistically target or trade for, or do we tank for McKenna? Oh my God.
I'll start with that one, if you don't mind. So we talked about earlier in the show about making sure that the front office, the coaching staff, and the roster all fit the same philosophy. Yep. So obviously, if you're going after a guy like Marner, you're expediting the rebuild and you're going into a contention mode, right? So if you're looking at if you're looking at free agents that would not equal out, because I think Marner is going to be 1 or 2 on everyone's list in this offseason. But if you're looking at guys that you could put in there to supplement losing on Marner, and again, this is only assuming the Bruins are going into this offseason with the idea of contending next year. If they're not planning to contend next year, they're probably not throwing big money at these guys. But you got to think about it. Bruins, like Boston, is a place where a lot of people want to play because it's Boston. It has a great history. They know that they're going to compete at some point soon because the Bruins never go into these long tanks. It's just not the way that Charlie Jacobs does business. So depending on how the outlook looks, you're looking at guys like Mitch Marner. You're looking at Nikolai Ehlers, Brock Nelson, maybe Brock Besser, Brad Marchand could come back. Like there's names out there. I know that someone mentioned earlier in the chat too that the Bruins can't score and there's really no free agents that could help us this year. And it's like you're clearly not looking at the list of free agents and you're just trying to cherry pick. There's always someone who's going to help every single year. You just have to pick and choose who fits your team best. So. If we lose it on Marner, but they want to stay competitive, those are some names that I keep an eye on. So Besser, Ehlers. Besser, Ehlers, Nelson would probably be my top three that I would keep an eye on if you want to expedite that rebuild now.
I did a puck GM, which is never a good idea because this is just a boatload of bullshit. But I did one, and here is what I came up with. And I think this is going to be really good because they're not going to spend $13 million on one player. They're going to put it into multiple players if they were to do my plan. If the Bruins want to compete next season, which I think they could if they spend their money the right way, okay? Your first line, Middlestat, Ehlers, Pasternak. The Bruins go out and they sign Nikolai Ehlers. Now, the second line, if the Bruins want to really compete, Morgan Geekie, Elias Lindholm, Brock Besser. That is the second line next season. The third line, everybody's going to like this trio. Patra, Zaka, Lysell on the third line.
I'd love that.
I would. Sorry, Kenny. I don't think Merkulov is re-signing. I don't. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Should we go into this, or should I let you finish your
let me finish real quick, and I'll let you get into that. Fourth line, Beecher, Lauko, Kastelik, and I think the Bruins re-signed Koepke as an extra forward. Defensively, Lorai, McAvoy, Lindholm, Peak, Zadorov, Jokiharju, Swayman, and DiPietro, because I think the Bruins are going to trade Korpisalo to Philadelphia, random team, for a 2025 fifth-round pick and Alexis Gendron from the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. So that's what I think they're going to do. And then,
so you don't think they're going to re-sign Husnudinov?
Husnudinov will be in the minors to start next season, and Callahan is also your seventh defenseman. They let Wotherspoon walk.
Okay.
So that's what I think. That's what I think they could do. If they're trying to compete next year, that's what I think they should do. Kenny?
Yeah, I think Korpisalo to Philadelphia actually wouldn't be just some random team. I actually think that's, a plausible destination because they could definitely use a guy like him, especially with Samuel Ersson and Fedotov and Kolosov. They've just kind of had a carousel of just bad goaltending. So I think Korpisalo could definitely aid them in that. Going back to what you said about Merkulov, after talking to some people, I'm not as sure that he's going to go back to Russia next year. It's definitely a possibility. We've only seen one report of a Russian team reaching out earlier in the year. He would have to want to go. And I think if the Bruins offered him another contract, especially if they're going to do what you just said, and they're just going to completely just, move on right now and contend next year, I don't think Merkulov is going to stay. But if they leave the roster open and they put together a 1 to 2 year plan, I think that it's definitely a possibility that he stays. I just don't think it's as cut and dry as I thought once, the trade deadline was going on. I think that there's a lot of holes on this team. And I think that even bringing up a guy like Merkulov for just next year and seeing how he plays, I would definitely not consider it a done deal, or at least as I don't think it's as clear as what he's going to do. And obviously he would have to want to go back to Russia. So like I said, I'm not Merkulov. You rarely see Merkulov talk to media, but it's definitely something interesting to think about. He still could go to Russia. I just don't think it's as clear as I once thought. So
yeah, I'm with you. Somebody said I like Ehlers over Besser. I completely agree with that, but also, who is more likely to be available in free agency out of the two? Brock Besser, right? If the Bruins, if the Jets don't re-sign Nikolai Ehlers, the Bruins should be all over it. If they don't, then I could see the Bruins going after Brock Besser because I think Besser's going to be available. I don't think he returns to Vancouver. I just don't. I think their playoff window is already their Stanley Cup window is shut if Besser leaves, and I think he's gone. That's my thoughts on that. So, do you think Korpisalo will start Tuesday? I don't see why he would. I think they would kind of want to give themselves a chance to somewhat win. Well, actually, if that was the case, then Korpisalo would be in that. Anyway, that's a whole nother ball game. let's see. I thought Merkulov was going to go back this season. Also, who will be their goalie next year in the AHL of either of those goalies? I'm off to another team I have a chance at. I mean, if they're off to another team that – oh, I read that wrong. I'm off to another team I have a chance at if the Bruins don't take him. Oh, okay. So, if they get Boya.
Yeah, I talked about this earlier. I mean, the first thing is I don't know. I didn't really think Merkulov was going to go back, this season because he still had another year on his deal. So why not finish it out and see what happens? But I talked about the goaltending earlier, how they are actively already reaching out and trying to work out a deal with DiPietro, which would be huge because it gives a lot of flexibility to that backup role. It gives them flexibility to who they want to sign in the AHL if they want to go after Albin Boya, or even though I don't recommend it, if Philip Svedbach wants to, sign with Boston after the season as well. It also gives you flexibility with Korpisalo if you want to trade him next year and maybe grab a player, a few picks. So I think Providence or Boston, whatever happens, they're going to prioritize signing either Bussy or DiPietro, and it looks like they're obviously leaning towards the best goalie in the AHL this season, which I like, and I keep saying it. I love that they're jumping the gun here because the goalie market is not very deep. I think like one of the number one names on it is Freddie Anderson and Hunter Shepard in the AHL. So if the Bruins do not come to an agreement with DiPietro, I'm sure there's going to be other teams that are willing to give him an opportunity. And like I said about Merkulov earlier, earlier in the season, it was like it's difficult, right? I didn't really see a path for DiPietro or Merkulov to be in the NHL next season, but with everything that's happened, if the Bruins decide to rebuild, I definitely see a path where they can make a move and DiPietro could be the backup goalie. So,
yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah. All righty. That is going to do it for episode 387 of the Black and Gold Hockey Podcast. Mark will be back with us hopefully next week. Thank you to Kenny and David for joining us this week. Kenny, thank you very much as always for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun, and I hope we do some more of these once the season ends and Providence is hopefully making a long Calder Cup run.
I think a deep playoff run for Providence could be good for the system, as they could get that useful playoff experience, which is what the Bruins have been kind of lacking. If they can get to the conference final, that's huge for Providence. That is huge.
Definitely not a bad thing. So
no. David, again, thank you as always for joining us here on the pod. Appreciate you having on.
Sorry about the technical difficulties to start here. I had to get the tablet out, so this is not the normal quality, obviously, but glad to be here with you guys. And can you enjoy the Providence stuff now the rest of the season? And I'm sure you'll be back on here before too long.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and you enjoy it as well. Join Sam's stream, follow on Twitter. Let's all. I love it. I love having the coverage of Providence. I love when other people are reposting or posting videos of Providence or putting their opinions out there or writing articles. I love seeing the coverage because AHL is obviously undercovered for every team in the league. So
I'm going to throw this out there too. You can touch base with Mark. You can send along a resume and stuff, but anyone who wants to join the Black and Gold, you can see it in our ticker at the bottom here. Send along a resume, cover letter, whatever you want. If you want to start a podcast, I know we've been looking for Providence Bruins podcast. Most of the people at Black and Gold right now just don't have the time with everything else going on. But if it's something that you're interested in, send a resume along to Black and Gold Productions LLC at gmail.com. Touch base with Mark on Twitter, myself, Sam, Kenny, anyone, and we'll get you in touch with the right people. But there's definitely a spot open for someone to pick up the Providence Bruins on a podcast platform.
You nailed it, David. If you have a resume or if you have an idea about a sports podcast, not even hockey podcast, you can go reach out to Black and Gold Productions LLC at gmail.com. If you want to become a writer, reach out to that email as well, and Mark will get back to you ASAP. Those who are listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, make sure if you have not yet, make sure to leave us a 5-star rating and a nice review. It helps us out and makes us one of the top hockey and sports podcasts out there. For David, Kenny, and myself, we're signing off for now. We will see you guys next week for episode 388 of the Black and Gold Hockey Podcast. See you guys next week.